Alright. Now it's time for the worst section in the game to me.
Story-wise or gameplay-wise?
Story. We're stuck in this section, in this prison, with this guy, the guy that called us Mick Cutler. That's his name, by the way. Which is voiced not by Steve Blum, like someone speculated previously, but a guy called Anthony DeLongis, a guy who has been acting in TV and movies since 1969. How much more doing the gameplay? Because for this first section, we're thrown into gladiatorial combat. Why? Because these people love to have fun, I guess. By the way, this is still supposed to be a resistance game.
Welcome to the 1950s remake of Gladiator.
Oh, so this guy just
and
has
he got the sledgehammer! My God!
So this guy just has this guy.
WWE.
Sorry.
Anyway, let me read this quickly because the description is not that much. Yes, you have a melee weapon in this. A heavy instrument made of solid iron, typically used for destruction. A big swing and a heavy high damage swing. Notably, this is the only weapon that cannot level up, possibly for very obvious reasons. Also, for the the wardens, these homicidal humans, were once in prison for serious crimes but have now escaped and created their own community of thrill killers. They survive by sticking together and by taking advantage of any survivors they found outside the prison walls. They use a variety of weapons to satisfy their desires.
While that is an explanation, I feel like we should get, like, you know, something more.
The game is gonna give another mention of why the Chimera haven't attacked them yet. For the time being, arena fight. Go on, Pedro.
I think I figured out why the game is suddenly taking such a weird offbeat detour that doesn't seem to have to do with anything. I get the feeling Triple H took over. Like,
that's the thing though. Triple H has actually been really good in terms of being the new creative head of WWE nowadays.
Oh, I get that. That's what I'm saying. I get the feeling Triple H took over.
Why does this
this is what WWE would look like if Triple H was drunk.
Also, in case you're wondering, Java, yes, you have been stripped out of your equipment this time around. They remember to do that.
Why does this? I'm sorry. Why does this feel like a poor man's Mad Max?
I wish.
Yes, mate?
Yeah, this two men enters, one leaves. Gone.
Remind me, Dibs, is Stephanie still married to him, or did they separate?
Yes.
I forgot.
No, they're still married.
Okay, so is Stephanie still in an executive role still?
No. What happened was she was removed from the company by Vince, who, you know, because he quote unquote retired in the middle of 2022 when all those allegations came out, but then he forced his way back into the company early last year. Spearheaded a deal of which they would merge with UFC, but then more allegations came out, and then he left again, and this time it seems like he's not going to be coming back. But during all that, Stephanie was ousted from her position.
So was his wife his manager?
No, well, no. I'm asking, like, was Stephanie, complicit in what Vince was doing?
I don't know.
Okay.
So
again, there's all those at the moment, from what I understand, are just allegations at the moment. But there are quite a few of them, from what I understand, and that is pretty bad.
Anyway, so these guys really want to see Capelli dead so much that they willingly jump into the ring and go to attack him rather than, just shoot him.
These psychopaths are written in a Strowman way that it makes no sense. First of all, there are literally like hundreds, like almost thousands of them. And I don't understand. I don't think, a penitentiary like this will embolden this much at the same time. And second, again, now they know they have a method of not being, slaughtered by the Chimera, mind you. But it really feels odd that they managed to survive for this long, despite the fact that they're all homicidal.
And now someone's shooting at us.
Well, yeah, the guy, Mick Cutler. It doesn't kill us, but it's just for taking an ample while we get back to our cell, basically. Although, if you notice at the beginning of the cutscene, one of these lieutenants seemed to be willing to, talk to us, which he's doing now. This guy, Herbert, voiced by Paul Hastings.
I found this book among Dr.
Colonel,
Malikov's
what are you
things.
doing here?
He was a brilliant man. My name is Herbert Sawicki. I've been Mick's lackey for over 3 years. I'm tired of being a victim. No more. I have a plan to escape, but we need to move quickly. You see that drone up there? There are 4 of them around the prison. You need to disable them. Here.
And he
guy
also
made
gives
something
us a
so
new
keep
weapon.
it safe.
For,
You can
again,
pull the trigger
the
and fire
drones are the
quickly.
things that actually
Hold it
actively
down to
suppress
build up pressure for
the
a more
Chimera
powerful
from
shot.
attacking. They
Take the radio
basically
too.
give a nothing is
I'll get
here
the
kind
door.
of signal. Anyway, last major weapon that you get in the game, once again, taking cue from Ratchet and Clank, but in this case in a more gruesome kind of way, as you're about to see. The Mutator. You know, in Ratchet and Clank, you get these quirky weapons that turn enemy into sheep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This one does something similar, but not exactly as cute. A biological projectile weapon that infects enemies with a modified strain of the Chimera virus. Overexposure causes painful and violent death. Pressing on R1 to charge up the weapon fires infectious biological projectiles. When an enemy is overexposed, it grows a large explosive pustule and falls to the ground. The pustule can be detonated with another weapon, or it will explode in its own after several seconds. With R2 releases a large toxic cloud and infectious fluids. Enemies inside the cloud become incapacitated until the cloud disperses. And again, you're just about to see, because it's your only weapon disposal, you're just about to see how unpleasant it is for its victims. Yeah.
I should have warned you. That weapon tends to have some rather unpredictable...
Yeah, I can see
You
that.
don't say.
Yes, thank you, Colonel Campbell.
I guess at least it didn't turn the poor guy into a chimera, just a literal batch of bubbling flesh.
Okay, yeah, that is actually the Colonel Campbell's voice actor, Paul Idy, voicing him. But can you imagine if he gave Snake that kind of weapon? Snake, I have found this weapon for you. Bang, what does it do? Snake, what is fire that's...
Go on, Drove. I can mention what I have to later.
So, if I understand correctly, these guys are more or less our last roadblock before reaching New York City, which means that,
Yep.
in spite of everything he survived, Malikov just dies to humans.
Yeah,
Just like
I
that.
guess it's a good time for us to discuss what happened at the end of the previous part, I suppose. Because holy shit, like I said, it feels very tasteless in the way they killed Malikov. There was really no reason to do it. Like I said, if you want him to die because, you know, too fragile and everything, just make him die during the train crash.
Which makes me consider, I'm guessing our new tech whiz will have to be Herbert, since last I checked, Capelli doesn't...
You'll see. No, you make a good point, however, because Malikov himself told that he's the only one who knows what to do with the tower in New York. But let's just say that for the time being, Capelli is preoccupied of getting out of here.
Oh god, what if Malikov comes back as a chimera zombie, but still retains his intelligence enough to help us?
Alright, let's check what the cloud does.
I created that weapon using tissue samples from a Chimeran leech. More effective than I could...
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, I think that this was something that the psychopaths themselves would have used, essentially, to turn people into Chimera, but no,
Well,
this
that's
was
the
apparently
thing.
just a side project Herbert was working on.
Yeah, and again, Herbert is supposed to be the one sane man among these psychopaths, which, you know, aside from the ones that are currently behind the bars, mind you. Essentially, the thing is that what Herbert told us is get to the drones and dislodge the power cells to them, because these will attract the Chimera to the prison. You know, the confusion will be the perfect diversion for him and the other prisoners, along with Capelli, to escape.
I guess the saving grace is we're using this weapon on legit terrible people. as
Oh
far
no,
as
yeah,
we know.
I don't mind that. It's just that, like he said, the whole idea of having human, it's what they said in the previous part, the whole idea of having humanoid enemies, you know, by almost the end of the franchise, it just feels something that should have happened before.
Now, to their credit, yes. At least the explanation as to why these guys would not want things to go back to normal is, I kind of get it. They're the most free they'll ever be here. It's just, like you mentioned, not only do they come out of nowhere in the last game,
Hold on, these.
Mick asked me to make some repairs to the remote access.
Basically, Mickey is now is actually pressured by, Herbert now is actually pressured by one of these lieutenants, so let's give him a hand.
Okay, that was a nice one-liner.
We were almost compromised. I should be more careful.
And I know what you're thinking. Mickey's is basically the kind of guy that acts as lieutenant to the main bad guy and wants to betray him for his freedom. So the big question is he gonna die as a sacrifice at the end? We'll have to see.
I assume if you shoot him, it won't affect him.
No, obviously.
That would be funny if it gives you a game over by shooting him.
They used to be prisoners.
Of course, that implies that Herbert has built up an immunity to his own weapon.
There's no explanation for their behavior. They're just drunk with power, or fear, or both.
Uh-huh. I guess.
Let's see here.
And like he said, and once again, at the cost of sounding a broken record, the fact that Capelli doesn't say a single line to Herbert in this just feels odd. He really should be saying something, anything.
You know,
like, why should I trust you or something?
It's weird. Even though Hale barely spoke, somehow it felt like we got more reaction to things from him even in the first game compared to Capelli in this game. Maybe it's because things are a lot heavier in this game than in the first game, and that is saying something. I mean, don't get me wrong, things are technically getting better, but we arguably see some of the most gruesome stuff in the series in this game, but not a single word from Capelli. And like, I guess the idea at least with the first game was Hale was a super tough and stoic soldier essentially, so at least it kind of made sense that he wouldn't react to stuff since, in the army, needs to keep a nice stoic face. Here, Capelli is out of the army, and we have seen in cutscenes that he can get very emotional about stuff, so it's not just that it's disappointing, it's arguably a character inconsistency. And yes, I'd argue that in this day and age of gaming, they could afford to, have more proper reactions to him in-game.
I mentioned about Doom 2016, and while I still maintain what I said, on the matter a few parts ago, they also bother to make a point in how to have the Doom Slayer express his feelings, via some body language, like for example, having to scrape, crack his knuckles in some particular occasions, or take a look at an environment and reacting accordingly to a certain object that he's interacting with, according to the story. So there is a degree of, showing instead of having to tell, but it will still be present. But in here, like I said, Capelli is just a blank slate when it comes to gameplay. It's like, I don't understand why. It's similar a bit to what Johnny said about, some comic Johnny said about Mother 3, where, Lucas has a presence until like the halfway point, but afterward it completely shuts off and you don't get any reaction from him for the rest of the game until the very end.
It's weird here because, you know what I've noticed with Capelli? Capelli feels like the reverse of Hale. Hale went from being a somewhat bland, stoic guy to getting development to the point where we saw more of the man behind it. Capelli feels like the reverse happened, though. Like, whether or not you liked Capelli, he certainly had a personality in 2, that's for sure. But then it feels like that personality just gets wiped away and we're left with a bland husk for the third game. Like, I really do wonder why. Like, are there truly explanations in those tie-in novels that explain why Capelli is the way he is in this game? Because holy cow, it's not just drastic, but again, even if there's a legit good reason why he's like this story-wise, it just gives us less in the story department. We don't even see a proper cutscene. I mean, and okay, we got him begging for we get him begging for Malikov's life. That's all well and good, but do we really get to see how he felt about Malikov outside of just working with the guy?
No, and we don't even really get, part of the collectible is not stuff. You think a part of that will be like notes that Capelli himself writes on the matter, maybe his feelings towards the journey. Nope. We get Malikov's diary, actually journal, sometimes. So there.
Ouch.
Well, shit. But not anything from Capelli. Like, the only thing you need to know is that he cares about his family. He's very underdeveloped family.
Sucks.
How nice.
Anyway, let
Yes.
me use this briefly to talk about Mick Cutler's voice actor Anthony. Where is it?
Anthony Hopkins.
No, Anthony DeLongis. Because, like I said, this guy has like a lot under his resume. Like I said, he started in 1969 and he's been in TV series and movies all over the place. He was in the original run of Battlestar Galactica. He was in the Masters of the Universe movie, the terrible one. Of course, one episode of Murder, She Wrote. He was, I think it was the main, apparently, okay, Lord Zygon, was that the main villain of Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin? It's created here as that. It might be. Then, let's see, episodes of MacGyver, Murder, She Wrote, and The Dukes of Hazzard, of course. Let's see, was in a bunch of minor Star Trek stuff. Babylon 5, the Goosebumps original series. And he started voice acting for video game with the first Fear Effect in the year 2000s.
Interesting.
Then, was he even in one episode of iCarly? What was he doing there?
What was his role in that?
One episode, a character called Emil in 2008. Anyway, it was also in the first Red Dead Redemption.
Nice.
Bulletstorm, Might and Magic Heroes 6. This one. Hillman Absolution as a minor, basically an extra, so no major important characters. Wasteland 2.
I've seen a couple of out of context cutscenes of Hitman Absolution. At one point in that game, you have to fight evil nuns.
Yes, it was used even in the marketing. It caused actually controversy, believe it or not.
Okay,
anyway,
evil nuns. That sounds like that has the potential to be either stupid or awesome.
Stupidly awesome or awesomely stupid.
Yes.
Anyway, point is, this guy's still doing stuff to this very day. Very, very active and everything, so it's cool. It's just that, I can tell you already, his character really, really is a nothing type of character in this game. He only existed to be the leader of a psychopath, to kill Malikov, and to be basically the ultimate threat of this prison level.
So what is his deal? Like, so he tries to have Capelli killed, but then decides, nah, I'm just gonna knock you out and keep you around. It's like...
Good job, okay? Because he's a psychopath. He's the random crazy.
Like, okay.
Arkham City was done around this time, by the way.
Yeah, I can definitely tell they're cribbing a bit from Arkham City.
Like you said, okay, because I've seen the story of the Miles Morales game, I know that that game has a much better story. So I can believe that the writer of this game improved with time. He wasn't the main writer, but he was essentially a creative director. So he had some degree of, influence on the plot in some kind of fashion.
I'm sorry.
I'm curious.
And so I can believe the guy improved, but this I don't even know if it was his first attempt, but I can tell you that I miss TJ Fixman so much.
I'm curious.
I think it's one of those. Sorry, go on.
I know that this series has fans, but are there particularly fans of the Well, okay. Are there particular...
The idea of depends on the story drone will be of the setting as a whole. And to be fair, I can believe it. You can easily make a spin-off set in any part of the world, saying what people were doing resisting the Chimera then.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, that's fair. Like, you know, I go, no. The overall premise of the world is a keen and relatively unique one that, yeah, I can get that. But I'm talking, like, you know, specifically the narrative of this cast of characters across these three games. Like, okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's also remembered about the fact of having the Chimera as the enemy, the multiplayer aspect, you know, and the setting as a whole. And like I said, outside of the demand, like I said, the Chimeras have appeared as one of the cameos that you get in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, because one particular, you know, gadget that you had allows you to have interdimensional wackiness stuff, and as an excuse you get a bunch of, you know, different cameos like Jack and Dexter's Lie, even stuff from Sunset Overdrive, apparently. And I think one of them is a bunch of chimeras randomly popping up. And like I said, you get a Chimera t-shirt in The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Woo.
I survived the Chimera Wars, and all I got was the stupid t-shirt.
Same goes, by the way, same goes for Forbidden Siren.
Huh.
That's nice, I guess.
One thing that's also important
sorry.
to remember regarding the rider, right? One thing that's also important to remember is that while it is true that a lot of these people are riders at Insomniac, they're not the ones creatively in charge most of the time. Like it's kind of like we've talked about with Nojima, for example. Like, yes, he's the writer, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's creatively in charge. Usually, very usually not. Like especially in video games, because I'm pretty confident, you know, that we have people like Ted Price, and in Spider-Man's case, Brian Ifinard, the director of Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man 2, and he's also, if I remember correctly, has some kind of leadership role on Miles Morales as well. So there's other people there making the actual proper. So with here, I blame this plot more like on poor leadership decisions rather than just the writer himself.
At the very minimal, yeah, it's more of a case of, you know, at one point Ted Price probably should have polished, you know, not polished, but you know, told things better to whoever was right.
I guess here's my question.
It also varies on how involved the writer was necessarily. Did he only write the script? Because
I don't know that, because unfortunately, like I said, Pedro, getting information on this franchise is a bit, you know, hard between these.
It was a rhetorical question. It was a rhetorical question. Well, what I mean is that, like, okay, yes, he wrote. As far as we can tell, he wrote the script. Yes, but. As far as we can tell, maybe somebody else came up with the base story, and this guy just was given a shit story to make a script out of it. Because a lot of times writers have to deal with that shit. Like a great example is all the problems that me and Taylor complained about in Final Fantasy VIII. Yes, Nojima's there, but Kitase is the one in charge. So Nojima has to write the game according to what Kitase wants.
Although we do know that Nojima is pretty capable of writing bizarre and potentially bad stuff, with the 10 you know, novel.
Oh, trust me, trust me. Well, to be fair, sorry.
Kojima.
No, Kojima, Nojima, you know, similar names. The point is, okay, to be fair, too, do we know for sure that Kitase was not involved in those novels at all?
I'll try to check in between parts just to be sure, but as far as I know, it was actually mentioned that it was basically mostly his doing. Sure, it might have been given, you know, the input of write something as a conclusion, post-conclusion with that. But I'll try to see.
Sure. Getting back to this game, though.
Just to mention,
sorry.
Just to mention quickly about the last data that you got, if you're wondering how Mick Cutler manages to know Capelli's name, I will tell you when I actually get to read his you know, enemy data intel entry. Go on, Pedro.
Sure, because as for all we know, maybe this guy got stuck with a shit story that was given to him. Here, make a script out of this.
I do want to give my 2 cents though. Like, well, while he may have been given the idea of a crap story, was he told how to write out certain aspects? Like, to be fair, for as much as the human psychopaths come out of nowhere, I would argue that at least the execution with them could have been done better than what we've seen so far, seeing as how, okay, there are psychopathic humans. You should arguably do better with the concept, but all they've done is essentially stalk us and okay. Maybe to match the game events, sure, but at least try and give better reasons to why they keep us alive rather than just, well, they're crazy.
The reason I'm trying to give the writer such benefit of the doubt is because we've seen multiple cases, not just in games but in movies, where the writer basically loses almost complete control of what's happening because of so many mandates from executives and other stupid solutions, to the point where what the writer originally was going for has been completely lost, and the writer becomes basically just a writer in name only.
That is true. Like, I mean, yeah, as much as a case-to-case basis can be, it is interesting when you do find out the real culprit behind something being bad. Like, sometimes you have a project that has a great director, but has a crap writer who, for whatever reason, does still have say of what's going on, and the director has to work with that script. Or, like you said, you can have a great writer who's hindered by a bad director who just has enough control. Like, sadly, it's not a uniform thing, because sometimes the arrangement of who holds all the power in a project can vary incredibly wildly.
Basically. Remind me, Dwibs, their names. I know one of them is Roberto Orti. What's the other one? The two
Alex
guys who
Kurtzman.
That's it, Alex Kurtzman. Look at their career, for example. We know, we took a look at, I still really enjoyed their 09 Star Trek movie, for example, just to give you an idea. But obviously, JJ was probably the one more in control of that. But the point is, you take a look at something like...
Transformers Prime.
I get that you guys like the first Bayformers, but I personally don't. But but obviously Michael Bay was the one in charge creatively of that, even if he got some and then we take a look at Transformers Prime, where this time Kurtzman and Orki actually are the ones in charge creatively, and they make a far better product in comparison. So it doesn't leave much room for the imagination on who's the better Transformers writer. In this
I will
case,
say, I feel a bit sorry that they kind of get a bad rap for Revenge of the Fallen, when technically they didn't even really get to write that movie due to being
because of the writer's strike.
Yeah, that's another example. Yeah, they got credited for it, but they actually didn't actually write for it. That was entirely Michael Bay doing it during the strike. So
anyway, I checked in the meantime, Pedro. Both the AN, the Daisho novel, and the Will audio drama were completely, written on their own by Nojima, which it seems that there's no other credited source on the
trust me.
input.
Oh, trust me. I'm in no way trying to say that Nojima is infallible. Trust me.
No, I was just answering the question that you posed. Anyway, to mention also quickly, there's only one door remaining in the cafeteria, so that's what we're actually adding.
So, question. Aside from killing Malikov and us getting this sick new weapon, will the psychopathic human plot point really have much effect on the plot?
No, it's just another step in the journey when you really get down to it. Like I said, this whole game is about the road trip. Like I said, again, it's a bit similar to when Joel and Ellie encounter the psychopath in the snowstorm. Yeah, you can guess what this trophy means, Dweebs. Essentially, you get it if you manage to kill enough enemies with the toxic cloud, because it makes them vomit.
I'm behind the wall, over here. Wait a minute. There's something wrong with this drone.
You looking for this?
We.
Herbert, you piece of shit. We've been good to you. We kept you
Why?
safe all these years.
Why have you been nice to Herbert in particular? Why not just be
because
crazy?
He's a sadist. Again, for the purpose of making him the dick in the plot, they flip-flop between him being a complete psychopath and being a mastermind of villainy.
Oh no, you're trapped. This door is locked. If you give me a couple of minutes, I think.
And as a result, it just results into a mishmash of of confusion. Anyway, basically Herbert is trying to, force open the door behind you, but you have to survive until then. So more infinite hordes of enemies, because apparently this prison has an infinite supply, a clown car squad of psychopaths. Sure.
Ah, there's the resistance I know and know.
And
Again, like I said, by the way, this is supposed to be a resistance game. I thought
Sure.
maybe. I thought
I
maybe.
think
Sorry, go on.
I think at this point the boat has sailed on that one too.
Well, to be fair, again, we will technically reprise the proper versus Chimera in the next part, so don't worry about that. It's just that I get also the idea of trying to give a diversity in the level design and giving a bit of variety, something new and unexpected, potentially for the player. But I'm sorry, like I said, at this stage of a franchise, this is not working at all.
You know, story-wise, again, we know that they're psychopaths, but one thing Capelli never tried during that cutscene, why didn't he try telling them, look, Malikov is literally the last hope for humankind. He's literally just, don't kill him or I'll kill you.
Or maybe, Drova, that could be just bad writing.
Yes, but like, again, you think he would first leverage the fact that they are humankind's last hope. I mean, he doesn't know that they are that psychopathic that...
It's contrived for the purpose of creating artificial drama with a cheap kill.
And that's the
Like
sad
I said,
thing. You want to
does
create...
that sound familiar?
And yet, yes, Last of Us Part 2. But again, the sad thing is, unlike Last of Us Part 2, outside of maybe a few select cutscenes, they do not have Capelli react. Like, so you want to have a dramatic moment, but the way you frame it, it's like the character doesn't even care, so why should we?
Yep.
Anyway,
That's always been. Sorry.
No, actually, about that, I guess you probably wanted to mention this at the previous part, Pedro. Maybe you want to give your 2 cents about what they did with Malikov at the end of the previous part.
It was just poorly handled in general, I guess. That's the best way I can put it. Like, I think I already talked about the whole family thing with Capelli, so no, I don't know not to mention that. This just feels like it comes out of nowhere. It feels like they
Are spitballing?
Yeah, like this feels like they had this idea for another game that was like a spin-off or something, but they realized they weren't going to make that spin-off, so they decided to just cram this in here.
Oh, and by the way, despite you having the normal L bar, when you're actually in critical, you still have the veiny stuff, and the screen turns into ivory sepia kind of like tone, which is just a delight for visually wise. I didn't talk about it that much, but he also had the problem of these. Whenever there was a storm, the lightning bolts made it a bit also more cumbersome. So also, oops, I died. Don't worry, I think I jump cut for this. Yeah.
But yeah, like I was
Really?
saying,
Everybody?
Yeah, every joke from Leon, the professional. Go on, Pedro.
basically. That's what I was saying about the writer. Like for example, to get back to working Kurtzman, another example is how Amazing Spider-Man 2 sucked, but we learned later from Andrew Garfield that apparently they originally wrote a much better script originally, but the executives took that script and completely mangled it beyond
Namely,
recognition.
probably Algarad.
From what I understand, it was part of their ploy to, once again, try and expand things into its own cinematic universe.
Is it true? Is it actually? Is it not? I hope it's just a joke, but is it actually true that they hired I forgot his name, Mark Webb, I think, as the director just because of his name?
Hope not.
I seriously thought it was okay. Okay. To be fair, before he made The Amazing Spider-Man, Mark Webb was mostly known for making 500 Days of Summer, which was a movie that was made before, which is where Levitt and Zoe Deschanel, who was regarded as one of the best romance movies out there at the time. Right? It was praised for its strong chemistry between leads, genuinely well fleshed out storyline, all that good stuff, right? So I guess if I'm going to give my best guess, it would be because they wanted to nail the romance in comparison to how it was handled in the Raimi trilogy. And to Webb's credit, one of the best things about the Amazing Duology is the romance between Peter and Gwen. Again, and remember, at the time that these movies were made, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone were a couple. So that even helped. Even like, but again, that definitely worked out. If their plan was to get better chemistry between those two, then yeah, that worked. But yeah, it's probably not. But that being said, yeah, I don't think Webb ever did an action movie before Amazing One. So
Shoot.
definitely. That being said, despite this inexperience, I still like a lot of the technical aspects of the first movie in particular. Like for example, the final. The third act big swinging scene across New York, you know the one, right? Like that one is pretty damn well shot. Again, for a director who has never made an action movie before, this is pretty impressive, I'll say.
But yeah, true. It's on you ask because yeah, that has been a thing tossed around. The idea that he was chosen to direct Amazing Spider-Man because of the name Webb, like it is kind of uncanny. We don't know he originally wasn't that interested in making the Amazing Spider-Man movie, but apparently did change his mind on that later.
Anyway, as you can see, we've been in order to get on the outskirts of the prison. We have to pass through. You guessed it, the sewer level. Amazing, but at the very least, it's an excuse to have a bunch of leapers and grims. So at the very least, you'll get reacquainted with a bunch of chimeras.
Conveniently, none of those aquatic chimera.
In case those actually were returning Resistance Retribution, believe it or not, Jova.
But not this game.
They're technically gone, thank goodness. That's mostly also because you don't have the swimming section. You also noticed, because of also the setting here, you don't. Once again, you don't have vehicle sections in this. You are on a vehicle, like say the train or the boat, but you don't get to pilot. Any of the Chimerian vehicle or any of the human ones. Again, that was some of the better section of the first game. Why those did not return for 2 and 3 is beyond me. Especially in 2, because it's supposed to be more based around Call of Duty, militaristic and everything. So you would think you will get at least a tank section, but you don't.
Not sure why.
It's so weird. And in case you're wondering, as I'm about to showcase, yes, the mutator can actually work also on Chimera, despite the fact that they will be already infected. Again, I don't mind because again, it makes the gameplay more fun. So I can live with that.
I can see that they're definitely trying to up the horror vibes for this level section.
Yes, Pedro.
Mm-hmm. No, but just to close my finger on Nojima, that's why the reason, like a lot of times, and yeah, like the 10 novels suck ass. Of course, everybody agrees on that anyway. So whatever, there's no point much in talk. But one thing that's also important to remember is that a lot of the times in Square Enix, Nojima is actually just writing according to what the director wants. So it's also important to remember that as well. Again, that's why I made that joke in our FF8 run about how I generally believe that the reason we got that entire big orphanage flashback thingy was because Nojima turned to Kitase and was like, did we ever actually actual character development in this game at any point? And we need to put some in here for, this is a character-driven story, and Kitase, I'm still convinced, got angry at Nojima. Okay, fine, you want character development? Here's your character development, motherfucker.
Pedro, stop being a chef critic. You also noticed that we do get our arsenal, bit by bit by collecting weapons on the ground. So the very easy was that. Once again, don't worry about the collectibles; those will be read in the extras part.
Another thing that's also like Teo was talking about Miles Morales, like that writer who's known for being a terrible activist, like who briefly worked for Insomniac.
Yeah,
That's it. Thank you. even she couldn't, for example, she couldn't really put anything in terms of problems regarding Miles Morales and Rift Apart. And in fact, we now know from certain things that will happen on Twitter that Sam Maggs herself, expressed her frustration on Twitter that a lot of her suggestions for Rift Apart, including, doing a lot of stuff with Rivet that was very questionable for what's meant to be a family-friendly game, but whatever. And she tried to accuse Insomniac of censorship and doing various other bad stuff. And then what happened was an actual proper Insomniac employee, and you can check this because this employee is can be seen in the credits of these games. So this person tracks. Who even replied to her tweets going, actually, no, you were actually making us very uncomfortable during our story meetings. That's why we let you go. Stop lying. So that was quite the interesting drama on Twitter. But one thing that I have to remember when it comes to these writers is that a lot of times these writers don't actually have control of what's going on. So, which is why I'm willing to give this writer the benefit of the doubt regarding this gigantic big-lipped alligator moment we're experiencing right now.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Mags had anything to do with what I'm going to ask, but apparently they were going to call Rivet Ratchet at one point.
Yes.
Because management really wanted it, but the developers were like, "Okay, can we just call her Rivet or something?"
Like, I get it. The idea is that she would be Ratchet from another dimension.
A bit similar, yeah.
Ratchet,
to be fair, it was probably one of those moments where this totally sounded better in their heads, and someone fortunately was quick to point that out to that person, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Again, there's more stuff that I could say, but this is not really the place here. Anyway, for the time being, we're almost out of the sewer section. We just had a bit of a horde mode, which admittedly, despite the relatively limited option at this point, was not actually that bad. Go on, Jova.
So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, despite how out of nowhere this feels like, I do argue there could have been interesting stuff done with the human psychopaths. Maybe there are human psychopaths who, praise chimeras as the true gods, having finally come back, and they see their way as the natural order. No, like you said,
Jova, aside from Herbert, all of them are written to be basically strawmen or, the flip-flop in terms of personality when it's convenient to the plot, like with Mick. The fact that, flip-flops between just being an asshole or a psychopath to just being this evil mastermind who's managing to hold this prison together.
Yeah, that's another thing, Mick. You can do a psychopathic mastermind who...
Thankfully, our plan is actually working out, because even with just 3... drones disabled, the Chimeras actually have been alerted, meaning that now it's an all-out war and we have a bit of a more fair game. We just need to disable that last drone, possibly kill Mick in the process, and then we can go away.
Just possibly kill Mick. Maybe he has a shot at living.
And I'm sure if we can actually kill him, it's gonna be the most satisfying thing ever.
I mean, why don't we just shoot him with the mutation gun?
You'll see, Jova. Anyway, for the time being, we just need to actually get our way in. Again, a lot of the psychopaths will be busy fighting Chimera, and vice versa. But if they spot you, some of them might try to actually gun for you. They will not team up against you, don't worry. We're not using Monster Hunter logic here. But there will be a case where sometimes they might be tempted to actually ignore the other faction and shoot you instead. So watch out still. Go on.
Okay. If I do want to give it some credit, I guess it seems like the humans function as somewhat different enemies from the Chimeras, so it does...
Their AI is a bit more accurate, and possibly for the worse. You noticed with one of the sections before, their aim was very precise, almost on the same level of the North Koreans in the first home front.
I'm guessing it's their way of upping the difficulty, showing how to up the ante in that regard.
Potentially.
Fair beans, I guess it does force you to sort of change up the way you play.
For a small reflection that I just, formulated right now by thinking about it, it's funny. The around the same time as Resistance 2, Aliens Colonial Marines came out, and that's a can of grease for another time, trust me. But one of its main problems is that at some point you stop fighting Xenomorph, and then you start fighting Weyland Yutani, soldiers on their own, meaning human enemies. Why? Because Randy Pitchford wanted also to get some more of the Call of Duty audience. But it's funny that still around the same time, Resistance 2, which is the game that was trying to be more like Call of Duty, did not actually had human enemies, instead focused squarely about the Chimera, and instead it's this one that has them.
Like, I don't even hate the idea of human enemies on principle. Like, if anything, I'm surprised it took until this game to have it, but
as with many things, Jova, to me, it has to be primarily work with the setting. I mentioned that when I argued about how fighting humanoid enemies in an RPG, particularly in a Japanese RPG, possibly should be done, at least personally, a satisfaction. It actually can be, as in, do not go either extremes. If there's a humanoid enemy that gives the possibility of mutating to something else, do both. Maybe separated from each other. Let's say you fight normally in human form, and then when it comes later, when they come later, they are mutated or something like that. Or instead, don't do the opposite of just fight the mutated form, like with the Super Pope of the first 13. Again, for all intents and purposes, the 13th team did learn their lesson with Caius Valad. Shame that they gave him gimmick to be very frustrating as a result, but the fault was there at the very least.
Yes, it certainly was. But I mean, okay, I guess to these humans' credit, it's not like they're working with the Chimera, and they are smart enough to know that they should have a protection.
It seems that we almost come close to that. We don't do that, and I appreciate it.
Like
I said, the death of Malikov is really the one thing that sticks out, because otherwise, the rest of the narrative of the game, despite, like I said, me not really, liking it for what it is, still managed to avoid a lot of cliché that could have made it even worse. Like, again, they did not kill Capelli's family. They did not kill Charlie or one of his cohort. They did not kill Jonathan or his wife, or any of the congregation, because like Satan emerges, and slaughters all of them. No, they avoid that. But with Malikov, no. He needs to die for the sake of, cheap drama and motivate Capelli for the finishing line.
Wait. This motivates Capelli because Capelli needed more motivation.
You'll see at the beginning of the next part, Jova.
I guess it's just like, I always had the implication that Capelli was already motivated, given how, he left his family to go help
the family,
Malikov.
Yes, but keep in mind, it's more of a case of, remember, Malikov claimed that he's the only one that can shut down the tower in New York. So without him, like I said, Capelli will have to improvise, I suppose. And that would be a good excuse for him to not try anymore and just surrender. But you'll see what happens at the beginning of the next part.
Cool.
For the time being, we're actually getting close. And again, the game also the level design tries to justify how the inmates had all of the vehicles they used in the previous part by having all this garage with all of these trucks and stuff. But like I said, how many, in just 4 years, how did they manage to become so organized and collect these many resources while being a bunch of sadistic psychopaths? It just feels too perfect for constructing. Again, it works with the Chimera because they are an advanced race of, technological beings that had influence from outer space. So there is a suspension of disbelief on why we would be able to organize themselves. And even then, it still took a while for them to organize a proper invasion of the United States, because they needed to build, massive ships that would take them across the ocean, It's just that, instead in this case, it feels like this will not be the ideal people who will be able to, manage to organize all this shit in just a dinky prison to boot. Anyway, we're actually getting closer, so let's get that last drone and Mick.
At least he's predictable. so long. I'm not proud of it.
Herbert is kind of like Pie Guy in the Frequency Drive games, in a sense that he's too meek and weak in order to potentially rebel, but wants to secretly try to do things for good.
Things are getting crazy up here, Joe. Chimera everywhere. I'm gonna get the rest of the prisoners out. Meet you back here.
It's good that
Alright,
he's
here we
getting the
go.
prisoners out at least. Wait, what?
Alright.
And we're back in the
So,
arena, of course.
What kind of boss fight are we having with Mick?
Let me guess. A
Oh!
match to the death.
You're giving the game too much credit, unfortunately. You know them, you love them. What do we have? The cuties. And I don't know how it's possible, but they managed to make a more scripted and less interactive fight than both Navarro and Le Paradox. How did they fucking do it? I don't know.
So, well, the big twist is that Mick was also in Serpa, which I guess suggests that he did not start off as a psychopath, but he leads the psychopaths, essentially.
Yeah. Alright, well, like I said, these cuties are basically a joke. This might as well be a cutscene.
Shoot him. Shoot him.
So,
Hold on. And similar to Metal Gear, you have to deal the finishing blow by using the secondary part of a menu. It's cute, but it's stupid. Fuck you, game.
Short at least.
Meh.
well,
Like I said, I enjoy cuties, actually a lot, but this is just pathetic.
Alright, so we have a new ragtag band of mates, I guess.
Well, you see, Capelli prefers to just leave them be and go alone, as he's about to actually see. But yeah, at the very least, with these, the psychopaths are basically completely gone because the Chimera are actually doing their job.
And to
Well,
think, if
question
they
two.
had just left us alone, they'd have been just fine.
Well, they'll be left alone now.
and everything blows up.
And yeah, Herbert does survive.
I didn't think I'd ever get out of
And again, I like that. You would think that it would set him up to actually die by the end of Mick, but no.
Take care of each other.
So, though Capelli is literally on his own, so what's he
Yes,
gonna do now?
Well, that's what we'll have to find out technically in the next part, because we're actually close to New York, so by the time of the next part, he's gonna reach the outskirts.
Like, I legit thought Mick was gonna be our new tech whiz, but I guess not.
Herbert, you mean?
Yeah,
No,
Herbert.
Yeah, there are some entries at the very end about how he studied Malikov's journey and wrote something about it. So I will showcase those in the next part, in the extras part. But otherwise, no. He's basically again going away on his own, and Capelli is gonna be alone for the last stretch of the game. But before we move on, Pedro.
So if you do fail the QTE, do you die at least?
I haven't tried, but I'm guessing yes.
Okay,
Because,
so it's already better than the giant QTE in Life is Strange 2, I guess. So there's that.
Or I think there was also another game where they
13-2.
13-2, right? Well, yeah, sure.
Well, 42 is literally just a cutscene. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need to trigger the X. You need to press the X button for the cutscene to even move forward, right?
Yes, and they do
it's
not matter. The idea is that they make the choice as like a different kind of cosmetic kind of thing, as in a character uses a different attack. The only moment where they do not matter absolutely is the very end with the final fight against Caius. But yeah. Anyway, tune in for the next part where Capelli reaches the outskirts of New York, and we'll see what happens. See ya.
Ta-ta!